Wait a minute. Oh, hello. Okay, let's go ahead and create our second step, step number 2, which is going to be the initialize game function. So let's go over to our main project and scroll down to step number 2, and let's copy that code over into our sandbox. So I'm going to copy just step number 2 over here to my sandbox, and I'm going to do that down below where we created the deck and rank last time. So I'm going to copy it in that code cell right there. Okay, let's take a look at the steps. So we're creating a function to initialize the game called initialize game. The function will have no arguments. All right, once again, we've got enough information to go ahead and define our function. So underneath the line that says define function here, let's use the def keyword to define our function, which is called initialize game. It says it has no arguments, so we're just going to have empty parentheses, colon. Okay, the function will shuffle the deck of cards. It will be interacting with global variable deck. It will create the player hand and the computer hand by dealing the entire deck, and the function will return 2 lists of 26 cards, the player's hand and the computer's hand. Okay, so let's go ahead down into our code here and let's write our code. So under initialize hands, we need to create 2 empty lists representing the 2 hands. Let's just call them hand 1 and hand 2. Now, it doesn't matter that they're not called player hand or computer hand, because these variables we're creating inside of the function are simply local variables inside of the function. We'll create the global version of player hand and computer hand when we call the function. Okay, it does say though that we are working with a global variable deck, so we're going to manipulate the deck by shuffling it. So we should go ahead and declare global variables, and we're going to use the shuffle function from the random module. So we're going to shuffle deck. Okay, oops, excuse me, I'm not doing that here. I'm just declaring global deck, and the shuffling of the deck is going to occur down here under the shuffle deck comment. Shuffle deck. Okay, so we've declared global deck. We've initialized our 2 hands, 1 and 2. We've shuffled the deck. Now we're going to deal the cards. Now there's a number of ways that we could deal the cards, but I'm going to show you a method to do it using slicing that represents sort of a realistic way that it would actually occur in the game of war. You could picture playing the game of war and alternatively dealing the opponent a card and then yourself a card, and you keep going until the deck is empty, resulting in each player having 26 cards. We're actually just going to use a slicing method to create hand 1 and hand 2 like this. So hand 1, we're going to set equal to deck, and we're going to slice the deck. Now we're going to slice it in reverse order. So you can think of a deck of cards that we've created as a list. And the top of a deck of cards that's sitting face down, that top card, is actually the last card in the list. So you can think of a list as a stack of cards, where the card at the very bottom is the first card at index 0, and the top card is the last card at index -1. So when you deal a deck of cards in the game of war, you start with that card on top. Okay, so we're going to start with the card on top and then deal every other card to one hand, and then we're going to do the same thing with the other hand, but we're going to start 1 card lower. So we're going to start at card -1, colon. Now I'm not going to put an ending value here because we're going to shuffle until the deck is empty, so I'll just leave that blank. And then we're shuffling every other card in reverse order. So every other card is 2, but we're going in reverse order, so I want to make that -2. Okay, so that will deal the cards from the top of the deck. They will deal the first card into the first hand, and then every other card until it finishes. And hand 2 is going to do the same thing, except we're going to slice starting at card -2, 1 card below the other one. Okay, so those 2 slices will create the hands for each of the players. The last task here is to simply return the hand, so we're going to return hand 1, comma, hand 2. Okay, let's go ahead and run that code. And that works. In the code cell below, let's create 2 hands, and we can call them, let's say, player hand and computer hand, and set that equal to the function call, initialize game. And then let's print out the length of player hand and the length of computer hand, just to make sure that you each have 26 cards. Okay, so that worked. Each of those 2 collections has 26 cards in it. Now let's do one other thing. I just want to show you how you would verify that the hands are good. So not only should they have 26 cards, but they should have 26 unique cards. So we should be able to loop through one of the hands and determine whether or not that card is in the other hand or not. We could do that like this. For card in hand 1, let's print out a statement. Card not in hand 2. So this is going to loop through all the 26 cards that are in hand 1, and it's going to print out a true or false whether or not card is not in hand 2. So if the card is not in hand 2, it should print true. So we have a good hand if we have 26 trues, right? So let's run this. And oh, I used hand 1 here. It's not called hand 1. It should be player hand. Excuse me. And I should use computer hand. There we go. And we see nothing but trues. Okay, so that's telling us that we have 26 unique cards in both of the hands. All right, so that does it for step number 2. The initialize game function is finished. Let's go ahead and copy our code back into our main project. Make sure you're only overriding the code, the function for step 2. And also, you don't need to be copying these things here where we are calling the functions and creating the collections, because that's going to be part of the main code in the project. We're going to do that in the 5th step. All right, so that does it for the second video. Step 2 is now complete.